The word of the day is fallacy. So, to be honest with you, fallacies are more like a high school level skill and strategy in debate, but you're smart debaters and you can handle this. So this is a higher level strategy. The idea with a fallacy is it's a flaw in logic, that somebody makes an argument or thinks a certain way where there's just an error in the way that they're thinking, that the dots aren't connecting. So for example, because tigers and lions are ruthless killers, then house cats must also be ruthless killers. Those two things don't necessarily connect, and that's an example of a fallacy, that somebody makes an argument that has an issue. So think of fallacies as a family, and there's a bunch of really specific fallacies. So one specific example is called an ad hominem fallacy. Ad hominem is Latin, but basically an ad hominem fallacy is when you attack a person rather than attacking their actual arguments. That would be something that you could call your opponent out on. Or it's also something that you would have to be careful of avoiding. Another example of a fallacy is a black or white fallacy. That you might have an opponent who might tries to argue that there's only two options. For example, you have to vote for the U of U or you have to vote for BYU, but that's a fallacy. There's a flaw in that logic. Aren't there a bunch of other options? There's UVU, there's SUU, there's all sorts of other colleges and universities, right? So sometimes you'll get somebody who might use a fallacy on purpose, that they're trying to derail their opponent, but it's also something that you could try and set a trap for your opponent, that they fall into that trap. But more commonly, LD in policy, you would basically call your opponent out on using a fallacy, but be careful when you call them out so it doesn't come across as an ad hominem fallacy. You would basically say something like, my opponent argued this, that's a fallacy because. So oratory and extemp absolutely can use fallacies as well, but they would build it into the speech themselves, right? Of maybe saying, this is something that society does, or this is how they think, and that's a fallacy because. So, fallacies are definitely something to be aware of, and if you're interested in them, there are a ton of them. Try Googling. Also in our shared Google Albion debate drive, there's a whole list of fallacies, but it is something to set yourself apart and seem more advanced in debate. There you go, fallacy.